In a world of limitless opportunities and countless challenges, the choices we make manifest themselves into the very roads that guide us. And the tribulations and triumphs that shape, weather, and bind these paths together are the very essence of what makes the world such a beautifully strange place. But we walk our path with no map, in search of answers that nobody has, simply hoping that we don't get lost along the way. So maybe just sharing our story of where we come from and the things that have guided us along the way can be enough to guide those lost in their own path.
I'm Zach Bonanza, and this is the Lost Guidance Podcast. All right, folks. That's right. It is the Lost Guidance Podcast, and I am your very not tech savvy and a little bit frustrated host, Zach Bonanza. So a little bit of technical difficulties. We already just did this podcast for about 20 minutes, and we found out it wasn't working, but it looks like it's working now. I can see it from here, ticking down. So
It's a chicken mistake.
Oh, I know. Man, so as you know, guys, every time we have a guest in studio, we're talking about the thing that they love, the passion that guides them, and it's always inspiring to watch or hear somebody's story of how they take something that they're really inspired by and they turn it into a lifestyle. And so Caleb, from the top.
Yeah, okay.
So, guys, again, if you are unfamiliar or if you haven't seen Caleb before, go check out the Disruption Network. Every Thursday, he's on the D-Line, football podcast you've probably seen myself on. And just wanted to get you in the studio and kind of talk about your overall general love of sports. And there's a lot of different avenues we're going to be able to go down with this. But what I usually like to do is just start the guests off and, again, kind of give a little bit of background into what kicked off their love of the sport and then how you got to where you are now.
All right. So basically, I would say probably my two biggest loves in sports are probably football and baseball. Baseball being one. I'm a little bit different than a lot of other guys that play baseball, I guess we'll say. In the fact that my mom taught me baseball. A lot of guys, you hear, oh, it's my dad out there in the backyard throwing batting practice to me and stuff like that. No, my mom was that one. My dad will give her the credit for that too. That's not a point of animosity for them. So yeah, my mom taught me baseball. She was one of five or one of six. Her and my aunt, and then I had four uncles. And obviously all of them were huge athletes and stuff like that. So baseball. I mean, I can kind of almost pinpoint when I the first time I ever swung a bat. It's one of my first memories. Weirdly enough, I know everybody says, oh, I have my first memory. But anyways, So I remember my mom throwing to me in the yard. It started out with obviously the plastic ball and the plastic bat.
The old wiffle set.
Yeah, the old wiffle set.
Then you're beaming it out of the park, and she's like, "Let's
get
it together."
Yeah. So the funniest part was, and I still think this is why I was such a bad hitter, was that my mom wouldn't ever let me hit real baseballs against her. So I always hit tennis balls. I still think it contributed to me being a bad hitter. I don't let her forget about it either. But yeah, one time my dad was out throwing to me one of the few times, and he always was willing. I don't want to make my dad sound like a jerk here, right? Because he's a great guy. But the one of the few times he was out throwing to me, I took a real baseball and put it right off his forehead. So
oh wow,
yeah, I lined it right back at him. So he was done pretty quick with that. My mom was just she would throw on her hand to me in the yard and stuff like that. So, but one of the things baseball did for me when I was younger was it was a big kind of a social event or way to hang out with my buddies and stuff like that. So, but I mean, as I grew up, it disappeared from that, and it kind of became more of a real thing, almost not a job, but a real passion. Yeah, a real passion. So I was playing. I had the luxury of both my parents being teachers. Which helped having chauffeurs in the summer. So I played on a lot of different travel teams growing up. That was a rewarding process. So, and I think the good thing that gets you to that got me was this is going to sound crazy, but when you're in elementary school and middle school and high school, you only seem to interact with kids from your own school,
right?
So I was playing with very diverse teams. We'll put it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
It really opens your eyes up to the world a little bit more. That some kids, a lot of kids from Podunk, Little Holland Pat in New York, don't get that opportunity to kind of see where a lot of other people come from and stuff like that. So that was definitely cool. So I ended up going to college. Probably wasn't overly talented at baseball. And I'm not trying to downplay it at all either. I really wasn't all that great, but I got an opportunity to play at Ithaca for a year.
And you were
I was a pitcher.
Pitcher, right?
Yeah. So Coach Val, who's since retired at Ithaca, he's he's head coach of Ithaca for almost 60 years. Yeah, he retired at 87. He called
at 87 years old.
Yeah, he was the head coach at Ithaca. Yeah, he was still the head coach up until last year. And actually, it's a cool story. His son took the team over.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, his son was at another school and came back and took the team over. So yeah, definitely. It's a storied program. And Val is a good friend of my uncle's, who's a doctor in Ithaca, and he set up a lot of the visits I had to campus and things along those lines. He never asked to see me play.
He's like, you'll be all right. Come play for the team.
He never asked to see me play. Never asked for my schedule or anything. But like one day when I was sitting in his office, it was kind of that day where you go in to like thank him and for his help and stuff like that, and offer. I was fully ready to go to Ithaca and offer my services, to travel with the team and help do things with the team. And he said, if you come to Ithaca, you're going to play for me, right? And I looked at him. I said, Val, I'm not sure if that's really what you want to do. And he said, no. He said, if you're coming to Ithaca, you're playing for me. I said, okay. And so I ended up there. I got hurt. And kind of throughout the year, he was using Val as a springboard, and decided I was going to transfer. It was real expensive there, and just kind of lost a little bit of luster once I wasn't around the team as much anymore and stuff like that. So after getting hurt, which is a fault of my own, so I left. I ended up at SUNY Brockport. I like to say this is one of the best decisions I ever made. I ended up getting my degree from there. I totally hung it up on baseball.
On playing it anyway.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you, Zach. Yep. So my graduation year's coming around, and I'd been close with a gentleman from Rome, New York, who's one of my mom's best friends, and he is a East Coast cross-checker for a team in Major League Baseball. And basically, I said to him I wanted to stay in the game, but I just didn't know how to do it. And he said, why don't you, he said, you need to do an internship? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you go to the Cape this summer? Go to the Cape Cod League. And if you're a baseball guy, you know what the Cape means. And I said, okay. And basically the Cape Cod League is the top summer wood bat league. So it's wood bat. So it gives scouts a really good chance to go in and evaluate what a guy would do with a wood bat. Because in college, you're playing with metal.
Right.
So I went to Brewster. I was the scout liaison for the Brewster Whitecaps for the summer.
So you're a scout liaison, and this guy was an East Coast cross-checker.
But we're not working for the same entity at this point.
Oh, okay.
So
it's more of like he opened the door for you.
He opened the door he gave me the recommendation where to go.
Okay.
So I decided. I said, okay, I'm going to go to. I worked in the Cape League, and basically my responsibilities were having a lot of. The summer that I was on the Cape, let's start with that number. There was 279 guys in the league, and 266 of them got drafted the next year. So that's
to pro baseball.
To pro baseball, correct.
In this league, you were the scout.
So it probably I think only 2 or 3 guys didn't get drafted off the team that I was working for, and it was solely because they weren't eligible. Okay, so they weren't draft eligible. There's certain draft.
That's a pretty crazy stat.
Yeah. So and so you're rubbing elbows with a lot of different higher ups in scouting departments. Basically, the way scouting department works for a team is there's on the amateur side. So these are all amateur side. There's two scouting departments for pro teams. There's pro scouting and there's amateur scouting. Amateur scouting is going to be all of your evaluating your high school and college kids preparing for the draft. Pro scouting is simply not simply nothing simple about it, but is advanced report. They call it a lot of advanced scouting. So you're going in, and if the Yankees were going to play the Red Sox that weekend, and the Yankees currently are in Seattle. So you'd send your advanced scouts to see the Red Sox play for a week, get reports built up on them, give it to the team. They'll go in and play the team. They've got the advanced. That's what pro scouting basically is. amateur scouting is going in and seeing a player, evaluating what you think his skills are, how they grade presently, how they grade in the future. What you think you're projecting
of their career,
you're
right.
projecting what you think that they'll do based on in certain categories. So in the scouting department, you have a scouting director who's your head honcho, your top guy,
the dude.
Yeah, the dude, and then you have your assistant directors. You could have up to you some have one or two assistant scouting directors, and then you'd have your cross checkers. Which kind of trickled down from national guys. Usually you have 2 or 3 national guys. They're going all over the country. They're seeing your top guys. And then you have your area cross checkers. Then you have your area scouts, and then you have your associate scouts. So your associate scouts are guys that are helping the area scouts. I basically volunteer almost get to the point of volunteering my time to a area scout. And helping with his territory. He has all of Maine down to Jersey, and all through New England.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and New York included. New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. So I kind of take on New York for him.
This is like your current role, and
that is my current role.
That came out of the Cape Cod.
That came out of
League.
Out of the Cape League. So I've been with the team that I work for. Their northeast area scout for 6 years now. This will be my 6th draft.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you still kind of just sticking to like this Cape League, or have you expanded to like different?
So I have New York
interstate leagues.
I have New York now. So you have to remember too. So basically, the summer leagues are only in the summer, or are only in the summer. But what we're doing otherwise. So a year, kind of a good way to understand it too, is a year for me basically starts in June at the draft. Okay, so the Major League Draft is every June.
Mm-hmm.
It's mid-season. It's kind of weird for a sport to do the draft mid-season. So we'll start at the end of the draft. All right. So the new draft, and then so now we're into our summer league. So we're each guy in the organization picks a summer league, and you're responsible for kind of overseeing that. I do actually the one that's here in Utica now. Currently the Perfect Game League. There's teams all over New York State, so it's very easy to just let them come to Utica. I watch them, pass them along. All the other guys split the other leagues in the country. There's a lot of baseball summer leagues. You'd be surprised.
Wow.
Yeah. So then after the summer ends, we're going into the fall, which is we're looking at scout days, where you go to the certain colleges, and you see all the guys that you're going to see for that coming year. It's an early preview. You could kind of look at it as. Then you go into where we are now, which is a lot of computer work. You're looking a lot of the way scouting can be done now can't be done on the computer, but a lot of it can be facilitated on the computer.
Okay, like
so you're looking up
stat comparisons and
that, but you're also going to. There's a lot of different entities that'll help you because they'll have showcase events, so you can narrow the scope of who your top high school guys are, who your top junior college guys are. Who your top Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 guys are from those, and it really can help you. It can really help you realize somebody that you can go out and see that maybe you wouldn't have seen before. At a different college. Every year you're going to go and see your St. John's, your Rutgers, your UConns, your Marist, Fairfield, Sacred Heart, your bigger schools. Hofstra. You're going to go and see those schools. It's just a matter of getting those guys done. What a lot of the online entities help us, because a lot of things are stat driven now, is you can go to these different, you can go to even a Utica college and see, hey, if they've got a guy that's really, really lighting it up numbers wise, well, he must be doing something that you want to see.
Right, that's it.
So you might as well go and see him. That's a lot of what I'm used for. I'm used to go see like that guy that like my boss is going to go and see St. John's. He's going to go and see UConn. He's going to go and see Hofstra at some point.
Right.
I'm here to help him to go see that guy that.
You're reading the fine lines.
Yeah, maybe he's a fringe guy. Like I'm not like I have seen guys that have gone in the first round, just because maybe they've been local to our area, in Albany or anything. There's a high school pitcher in Syracuse this year that I'll see, but that's just me going and seeing him for simply to see if his velocity's up or down, how he's attacking players and stuff like that. I'm not going in to make a huge report. I'm just going in to freshen up my boss's report on those guys. Whereas if I were to see a guy, at Mohawk Valley Community College, if I'm going to see him and it's somebody my boss has never heard of, I'm getting video for him. I'm writing up a good report for him so he can then see it. Because it's important to remember whenever an evaluation happens, it's the same in football, it's the same in any sport. When an evaluation happens of an amateur player, it's not made by one person.
Right.
If you think that my opinion has been made to draft any player, then I would be crazy to think that.
Right.
My opinion's gone into someone else digging deeper and looking more. And if we're going to take a guy, probably 5 or 6 guys have seen him.
Right.
Seen him before we
and it's kind of like got to be like this collective of opinions too.
Exactly.
Everybody's subjective, so you want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Exactly, and that's where you're bringing those. I'm simply, not simply, but I use downplaying.
Right, you keep trying to simplify it.
Yeah,
but, I mean, we're talking about a big professional organization.
Exactly. I correct me when I'm using those because that's a tendency I sometimes have. But my job is to go out, evaluate a player, and basically say, is it worth going to the next tier and showing him to my boss? If I go out and see a player that Ks 3 times in a game, strikes out 3 times in a game, and he was supposed to have these really awesome numbers. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, it sounds like a one shot type deal, but it really is.
Yeah.
Because we have such a small bracket of time here in the Northeast to evaluate these players. I mean, you know, high school starts in the end of middle of March, end of March. And they're not outside until April, and college is starting down south. So, I mean, my boss spends almost the whole month of February and the first part of March in Florida or in the Carolinas because that's where a lot of college and high school teams go.
Right. And you don't want to overlook these players and let somebody else get to them first. So, like, you basically...
Exactly.
And it's crazy to think. You never know who's in the crowd. Some guy, people would look and not know that you're just sitting there making decisions on
That's
on
what
their
you have to go incognito too. But
the newspaper.
oh my gosh, just anyway not to have somebody I've started, we're supposed to kind of have a decorum in dress that we're supposed to wear and stuff, and you don't mind jeans, but your collared shirt and stuff like that. I've started to go and kind of go a little bit off the not off the cuff, but a little bit different than what they ask, just because
Try not to be seen.
You don't want to sit there and talk to people because everybody thinks that little Jimmy's going to be the next Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
And there's different roles that have to be understood by a lot of guys, and that's what happens with how we project guys and what we think their future role could be. Not everybody's a big leaguer, but maybe you could play in the minor leagues. And I think that's important to talk about too, because what happens is once this evaluation process is done, and if the higher powers that be in our front office, because at the end of the day, ultimately the final decision on draft pick comes down to our general manager.
Right.
If the higher powers that be decide, okay, then this is a guy we want to take, we didn't take that guy, and he's sent one of two places. He's either sent to rookie ball or he's sent right to low A. So in the structure of baseball teams, there's your major league team. So you hear people talk about making it to the big leagues, and you hear people talking about making it to pro ball. Pro ball is anything that you play after you get drafted.
Okay.
So if I take a guy and he goes to low A or rookie ball, he's playing in pro ball. When you make it to the big leagues is when you make it to the major league teams, the Yankees, the Red Sox, those teams you hear about. But in the kind of domino effect of baseball, there's levels of development. So you have your big leagues, major leagues, then you have AAA, AA, and then you have a whole slew of teams at A. So you have some teams have high A, low A, short season, and then they have rookie ball. So there could be up to 4 teams. So you're talking about most organizations have 7 to 8 teams.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very, a lot of, once you get drafted, getting drafted, if in football, that we talk every week about, it's a little bit different because when you have a first round pick, you're expecting him to be on the field and
right.
instant exposure.
Absolutely.
Where in baseball, he's going to at least A ball usually. There's anomalies that of guys that have gone to double A, because you knew where they were headed type thing.
And they're kind of trying to push him up the ladder a little bit.
Exactly. So for all intents and purposes, you're going to A ball, and you're not you're only making your signing bonus. In the minor leagues in baseball, you only make about $1,000 a month. It's actually a pretty interesting read for anybody out there. We won't go down this hole too far, but there's a great read about the unions in minor league baseball and different things like that, because you're not actually part of the Major League Baseball Players Association union until you play in the big leagues.
Right.
So you're
it's hard to scrape by with that amount of money when you're not even a household name or anything.
Exactly.
You're just playing.
And that's the interesting part too of talking to my my boss and stuff, and both of my bosses played the minor leagues. So it's interesting. It's not as glamorous as you think it is, and that's why I tell a lot of people my job is, if I were to go out and tell you to buy $20,000 worth of an oil stock, okay, and it's a huge amount of money for anybody. I mean, we're talking about major league teams that are investing anywhere from $1,000 to $6.3 million in players in the draft process. So if I told you to go out and invest $20,000, you're not just going to be like, okay, yeah, let's do it right now. Let's just put it right in right now. No, you're going to go out and do your research. So basically, what my job is to go out and help facilitate that research and help the guys who are going to make the decision do their job best, whether it's me helping them with their scheduling, or going out and seeing a guy. That's important too. Really, any way that I could be a part of it, I will. It gets very tedious sometimes, especially when it's not in any way for me. I'll tell you this, for the last 10 years that I've been involved in baseball, it's never been anything to do with money, but it does get very it's tough sometimes when you're juggling two other jobs and in this job as well. You definitely have to really find that it has to be a passion.
Yeah.
And that's something that for me, I have had times where it has wavered a little bit, because it's like, I do love it, but sometimes you have to think about, is it really worth it?
Right. And I think some people get this kind of maybe like fairy tale image of it, where you're talking about like a talent scout for any sport, really, and they think they're going to go out and they're going to get the next, like you said, Derek Jeter or something, and they're going to be the guy who discovered him, and then there's all this fame and glory attached to it. But not really. I mean, think how many people are on an active roster in a major league team? 25. So think of all the hundreds of guys below them waiting for a chance that'll probably never get it. I mean, it's kind of bleak to say, but
an organization's made up of, we call it rounding out to 250. So you between all the rosters in your organization, you have 250 guys.
Wow.
And that times 30. I mean, it's expansive. It's not easy. And it's very non-glamorous job. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be at a ballpark. I mean, just simply, just being around it still and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, the essence of my story. I think there's probably a couple things that I forgot in there, but that really is kind of encompasses, where I've gotten to where I am today, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, I've kind of, I'm kind of enjoying where I'm at right now in kind of a, my boss will throw me some stuff, throw me money and stuff every when he can and stuff like that, and my travel is taken care of by him usually and stuff through the team and stuff. It's kind of a, it's a give and a take. It's a good gig, so I'm not going to give it up or anything like that. But it's just, the one thing I say to people, in sports is it's not as glamorous as you think it is. Yeah. It's not, you hear about these athletes and stuff like that, but you just have to be ready and you have to really have a passion for it, and you can't waver in that. Because then you start to question it. It's just not, you have to refine your love.
It becomes definitely like diluted once you start losing sight of it. But it sounds like they're at least giving you kind of, incentive, for lack of a better word.
They do. Yeah. No, it's a great gig. I don't say that as like poor pitiful me or anything like that. It's just, it is a really good gig.
I know. I mean, I think of how many other people that I know. I can't think of anybody else who does that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
For any sport. So pretty interesting to see somebody obviously like just coming from a local community, like you said, a Holland Patton guy, and kind of coming up and just doing what you love, and this is what it led to. So
and I coach. I do some coaching still in the area. I do some lessons still in the area too. It's something I'll never get out of. I would say that the only way I would get out of the actual scouting part was if I took over, a varsity job here or something like that.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, it's fun to go on the road. It's fun to kind of live that hotel life every once in a while and see the different guys from other teams and stuff like that. It's a cool group of guys. My boss is really cool about too. Like in the spring, he takes me with him to Florida or North Carolina for a week or two.
Nice.
And it's work but play. At the same time for both of us. we go down and I help him out. It would probably be on one of his busier weeks, so I'm able to kind of streamline his schedule and stuff like that. But that's the most important thing because another kind of stat that really makes you think about this. Our list of guys between high school and college usually going into the spring is about 250 guys long.
Wow.
And we're dealing with a time we can evaluate players on the field from February to like the end of May. So there's 3 months.
Yeah.
And that's 3 months is 90 days. So 90 days to see 250 guys.
Yeah.
The math doesn't work.
It's crazy.
So that's where you have to be. That's where you have to be finding, optimizing, his time as well as my time and any other guy that's coming in his time as well. If guys are coming in to see players in our area, getting them cross-checked or,
Right.
having another opinion brought in on them, we want to be able to maximize. So, you can't be scared to send a guy to see, maybe the number 1 or 2 guy in your area, but after send him to a fringe game that maybe he's not, not really, it's not guys that he should be seeing, but you've got to maximize that time.
Right.
If he's flown in and he's going to see this guy, then we've got to have him maybe perhaps see another guy.
If
So
he's right around the corner, let's go
exactly,
check out the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that would be the thing. If I was to bring my boss to upstate New York, and he was going to see a kid at the high school pitcher in Syracuse this year, then I would try to get him to also be able to, if my boss lives in Boston, if we're already in Syracuse, then maybe we go on to Buffalo to see the Buffalo colleges. If we're already in Syracuse, well, maybe I can set up a look at Herkimer Community College because they usually have a guy or two there because the community college baseball is a kind of a quiet a quiet monster, we'll call it.
Yeah.
You
can find some rough diamonds in there.
Well, because if you go to community college, you're eligible for the draft every year.
Oh wow.
Your freshman and your sophomore year. If you go to a 4-year college, then you're not eligible until after your junior year.
Oh wow.
So it's a little bit of
that.
it's a lot of your top. You'll see a lot of like your premier high school talent. If they think that they're draftable talent, they'll commit to a big school. That has to do with negotiating their contract. Pardon me.
No, you're good.
So sorry. That'll have to do with negotiating their contract. But they'll commit to big time schools because it has to do with after their career they get money to go to school and all that stuff.
Right.
But if they don't get drafted or we're in a spot they like, they'll go to community college. Go to community college for a year. Tweak little things and then be eligible again for the draft.
Wow.
Whereas a 4-year guy, if you go to a 4-year program, UConn, St. John's, any of those, Rutgers, Boston College, Northeastern, you're locked in until after your junior year.
You have to prove yourself for 3 years.
Yeah, you can't leave early. Which for some guys it's good because it's development,
right?
And it's some guys that were maybe a mid-level talent that become a draftable talent by their junior year.
Yeah.
There's also other times where you take that high school player and you want to instantly put him in your system because we want to take that raw 18-year-old and make him what we want him to be.
Right.
Not what that college makes him into be.
Right.
So it's an interesting game. It's a game.
It's pretty cool to be able to see somebody that maybe you had a little bit of say in his career too, kind of develop. I can imagine.
Yeah. You definitely track a lot of your guys.
Yeah.
Even if like they're not in my direct like New York and when I had New Jersey territory. It's still. I'm talking about these guys so much with my boss. I'm trying. You're trying to literally find out everything that makes these guys tick.
Yeah.
Every little thing that you can find out. We've gone to basketball games for high school players just to see what it's like, just to see how he is with his teammates, just to see how he is with the crowd, what type of person he is, because you want to know what makes these kids. I don't know how far
how they operate.
How they operate and what makes them tick. What really is, are they gonna?
So you're not getting a Jameis Winston on the team or something, somebody with baggage, really.
Yeah, that's gonna have problems once they get to
with the team and all that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I mean, speaking of, just a general love of sports. Speaking of Jameis Winston. You're also a big football fan. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And so that kind of led you to being on the D-line, which, again, if you guys haven't seen it, check it out on the Disruption Network. Yep. So how did that come to be?
So let's see. So I've always been a real huge
Jets fan.
Jets fan, yes. Yeah, Jets fan, yeah. But I've always been interested in kind of the transaction side of sports, the free agency side of sports, trades, stuff like that. Football kind of took me in that regard when I was younger too. So I've always been a fan. My mom kind of forbid me to play football when I was a kid. I've never 6'4", 220, never played a down of competitive football in my life. Which a lot of people
nuts, man.
Yeah, a lot of people
you make
don't.
A killer tight end.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe that. But I never did. So I always loved football. My buddies, a lot of my buddies were football players and stuff. A lot of my buddies from college, once I got to Brockport, were football players. So when I moved back here, I lived in Boston. Actually, I lived in the Cape. I lived in Boston for a little while. I was working in my job, with baseball, and working in a facility doing lessons and stuff. I moved back here, and I actually met Chicken from Disruption, and him and I always just every week I was working at a bar, and he was the bouncer at the bar, and every week we always would just talk about football, and it was he's as we know, if you've watched our show, he's a Bears fan, so a lot of what you hear
said that was such
a lot of the conversation that we have, we could be talking about the how this is the color of the sign is black, and Chicken would be like, well, the Bears this week, everything goes back to the Bears,
Yeah.
So we always talked about football, and then Disruption started, and he said, what do you think? Would you want to kind of, he's like, I don't want to make it too a serious show. I kind of want to do something different, and that's the way we are. I mean, it's just fun.
It's just
with Disruption.
You could tell you guys have a good rapport. Like you said, it's lighthearted.
Yeah, we're able to make fun of each other, which is nice. But at the same time, we do kind of we try to convey the news, try to convey what we think about games. Sometimes we do have, we're 3 years in, so we did have a lot of kinks that we had to work out through the first few years. Sometimes we get a little bit redundant, but at the same time, we all, that's kind of the point where the other of us step in and make fun of the other one. So it's a good push and a pull through the show. So, but yeah, it's been fun. I've always loved football. I've always loved Sundays. Have always been kind of sacred, even though we're doing this on a Sunday.
Very sacrilegious that we're doing this on a Sunday. Yeah.
But at the same time, we've had scheduling gaffes before. So, but yeah, it's been a cool chance to kind of. It's also kind of been fun for me too, because I think what a lot of people tell me is one of the things I miss was I would have been good in maybe the radio field, and who knows, life's young, so maybe we'll see. We'll see where that goes, but everybody always tells me, when I'm working and stuff, I work as a waiter too to make money on the side. Everybody always tells me I have a great voice for radio.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. So, but it's also been fun doing that with Disruption too, because it gives you starts to make you kind of turn the wheels a little bit,
right.
and think about an opportunity that might be there, and that's what Disruption's kind of provided me, and it's just been a fun. It's honestly something every Thursday I look forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
It's not like an obligation or anything.
Yeah,
it's just cool to see you have this kind of dual development just based on your love of sports, ingrained in you as a kid.
I also think that that's something that kids these days should take the chance to do too. Is don't be one dimensional. I mean, I focused a lot on baseball when I was a kid. I was a horrible basketball player. I was a horrible soccer player. Those are the other two sports I played. But don't become one dimensional. Watch football. Watch baseball. Take it all in and understand it, because when you try to have I also hate to try to have a conversation with someone who doesn't understand fully. Like
you can tell they're just BSing you.
But yeah, just give me. It's. If you don't know something about it, then I think too quick in society today, we're too quick to always think that we have the answer. And sometimes it's better, and that's what I've learned in baseball, is just step back and listen to what someone else has to say.
Right. And I think some people just try to feel comfortable by making something up. They'll be like, oh, I'm a Niners fan. Oh, is Joe Montana still playing? Like some BS like that. You're like, all right, you clearly don't watch football. Just
exactly.
Save me the
and that's the thing.
That's patronizing.
And you're exactly right. That's what I say about baseball too. My girlfriend is she doesn't like baseball, which is kind of nice for me, because it's my getaway. It's my thing that I can do. But that's the thing. Like you just put it perfectly. You don't have to love baseball. You don't have to love all of this stuff. Like, if we're having a conversation about listen and learn, but at the same time, when I say like you don't have to love it, is I can sit and watch a baseball game all day long, and I can watch a pitcher's duel, a 0-0 game. Nobody wants, not a lot. The average fan doesn't want to see that,
Right.
But at the same time, I appreciate it. That's what I love about the sport, and you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing about what the world we live in is you don't have to like baseball. I don't have to like what you like. You know what I'm saying? So,
and when you
I just
say
hate
like
people
not
who
to
don't.
be,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, it's like what you were saying. Don't be one-dimensional. Like, maybe we don't agree on this one thing, but you
Yeah.
know, I have a pretty broad appreciation for all sports and the technicality behind them.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't click on baseball, but hey, like, all right, did you catch the Nets game or something?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think it's been awesome to, here on a local sense too. I think that's why it's been so awesome that the Utica Comets have had so much success here
Blowing
in this
up,
area.
Undefeated still, right? Or did they lose?
They did lose this weekend, but they had a heck of a run. But at the same time, it's something that I mean, Zach, I don't really take you as a hockey fan. You know, we've never talked about hockey, but you knew what their record was.
Exactly.
It's something to just get yourself a little bit involved in. You don't have to sit there and that's the thing I feel like sometimes when I tell people like I scout for a baseball team is they feel like they then have to be like, oh yeah, I know so much about baseball too.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is I sit down with people and they try to tell me, like, I'll be sitting at a bar watching a game or a baseball game or something like that, and like friends of mine or people who know baseball come up and like start talking to me about it and like start like breaking it down, like giving me their opinion and like going in depth because they think it's like, listen, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But then like when I try to step in and talk to them about it,
they don't want to hear it.
they don't want like they'll just talk over you like because they know everything, and it's just like, okay, like I don't like what do you want where do we go from here?
Or they hit you with the all right. Oh, of course, yeah, I knew that. And you're like, oh yeah, sure you did. Tom.
Yeah, it's like okay, like, and that's great, but at the same time, like you can and that's one thing too that I try to even with my gripe about that, I try to not cut myself off with because there's so much you can learn from other people too.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that thing where I just feel like people want to be they don't want to be uncomfortable by not knowing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So they try to force it or make it up or falsify it.
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's just, but it doesn't have to be that way. And, and that's something I say. Just take some passion in something and know a little bit about it, and then just whatever. If you
learn from somebody.
Yeah, learn from someone.
Yeah. So, one thing I did want to ask you is, so like when you're scouting, are you looking at these guys and trying to quantify them? Like, is there like a stat sheet like that you're rating them with a grade and a number?
We do have it. We have what's called it's called. Some teams call it 20 to 80. We call it 2 to 8. So you basically grade on a 2 to 8 scale. A 2 is a non-prospect. That skill doesn't play out. We also grade it based on different things that we look at. So hitting for power, hitting for average. We'd need all day to sit down and really talk about that.
Wow.
That
in depth.
To kind of understand what it would be. But you grade on that. You grade on what you think it would be at the present, what it presently looks at like, and then what you think it would be at the future level if they kept developing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard. It's you hit and miss a lot on that type of stuff. That's why you don't those two numbers are generally not too far off.
Yeah.
If you put a future 4 bat on a guy, then he's probably a present 3. So it's a lot of. We have a whole manual. Every organization has a scouting manual.
Wow.
That you kind of have to go through. I pull a lot of my information from a lot of what my boss says, so I can know exactly what I'm looking for him, because that's who I'm trying to facilitate. I'm not really trying to facilitate to the scouting manual. I'm trying to facilitate toward him,
right,
and making his job as easy as I can.
Okay.
So I'm kind of looking for a lot of the stuff he is looking for, which in turn is from the manual. So it's grading wise. There's a lot of you usually comp a player, so you're usually comparing him to somebody who's active now or who's been active in the past that kind of does things in a similar way.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's not. There's never really like a.
It's never like standard issue, black and white kind of thing, right?
Across teams, no. But within teams, yes.
Really?
Okay, so it's not like one team might not have the same core grading values as another, because one team might be a little bit more analytic than another. For instance, the Houston Astros don't really even employ a scouting department. On the amateur side, it's very, very small. It's done with a lot of analytic things.
Wow.
But you also have to remember too, when it comes to analytics, it's only part of the scope. When you're talking about numbers, that's the new wave of sports. For instance, if you're a high school baseball player in the Northeast, in order to get me out of bed to come and see you play, your coach has got to tell me that your coach has got to lay his neck on the line, and that I haven't heard of already. Let's put it that way. That I haven't, a high school player that I haven't heard of.
Yeah.
And you got to be hitting like 600-700 at least. Batting average has got to be at least 600 or 700, because you're not facing the competition that a guy that in the middle of the lineup down in Florida,
right,
who is hitting 340, but is facing guys that are gonna go in the draft every other time that he's going out to the batter's box. Up here, if
you have to be crushing people in order to compete.
So that's why you can't buy totally into numbers. You can't numbers. No, don't get me wrong. Numbers are one of the first things that we really delve into and look at because it gets you there. But if you're a guy that has a ton of strikeouts but a lot of home runs, I can kind of already paint the picture on what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
So it's not universal because of different areas, but you have to know how to use those analytics to your advantage in your area.
Gotcha.
So like I know how to use the analytics in this area to my advantage.
Wow.
I'm looking for that difference between strikeouts and walks. I'm looking for that batting average to be in that right area. And by the end of the year, there's a whole list of guys from our front office that we get. And that's why it's good to understand, and we get these lists from the front office because my boss and I can go through that list. These are guys sitting in our office, compiling these lists, never seen these players. They're just going through in these stats
all
lists.
day long.
Yeah, which is great. It's helpful.
Right.
And then we can go through and pick out, okay, horrible. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
like it gives you an opportunity, and we'll take from those stat lists, we'll see another 15, 20 guys, and maybe they're guys that we sign at the end of the draft to fill out that 250, or it's guys that we'll take at the end of the draft too.
Wow. So. It's crazy to see how much obviously with such a professional organization, the compartmentalization that goes into it, even just the degree to which the scouting is broken down, and just kind of like the dynamics of it, and how on your level it's so like really the fine details, and it just works its way up. It's just awesome to see somebody who's in it and can kind of explain it for most of us like myself who have no idea that all this stuff goes on.
It's a totally different world, and it's a lot of that same world where it's tough for me sometimes to go to games, and you hear fans bagging on athletes, and it comes from living in a similar kind of not competitive world, because what we do is not nearly as strenuous as what being an athlete is. A lot of people think that being an athlete is just showing up at the ballpark or at the rink or at the stadium on Sundays or just for game day. These guys that play professional, let's take football, for example. These guys who are playing professional football, it's not just show up on Sunday and go.
Right.
It's practice all week. It's after those practices, keeping your body in shape, maintaining your body, knowing your body.
Yeah.
Knowing how your body's going to react to something. It's all the little things. And
just staying out of the news.
Exactly. That's another thing too. But that's part of it too. Like, a lot of like people just don't. It's hard for some people to grasp in the sphere of professional sports, and it trickles down to anything.
Right.
It trickles down to the players who are playing the NHL, one tier below the NHL. The way they go about their business, even here in Utica, I saw it when I was playing in college. Is how you have to go about your business when you're playing for when I was playing around guys who are just there for most of the guys were just there for the love of the game. It's how you go about your business. It's how it's a lot more than just what you see in the 3 hours that you watch a game on TV, as you know, Zach. I mean, that was kind of, and as I know, but that's lost on a lot of people.
There's definitely a detachment in a lot of people that you see these days. They just look at them like, you're just this object. You need to go out and entertain me on Sundays, and then I want you back doing the same thing every week.
And you brought it up a second ago too, and it's minding your P's and Q's in public. For some people, that's not all that easy.
I know.
I mean, think about the people that think about professional athletes as the same way as we think about like our friends. Like I have friends who've gotten arrested before.
Yeah.
Like just because they were professional athletes doesn't make it any less damning.
Let's ruin their life and take all their money away, right?
Exactly.
Like, what?
Like some athletes go through things. Some athletes, it's not the easiest thing. They're living their lives too.
Yeah.
Just because you become the day that you're drafted, the day that you sign your first contract in any sport, doesn't mean that's the day that you immediately become a grown adult.
Yeah, or a saint or something.
Yeah,
you know?
it's that.
Well, maybe a saint.
Yeah, LOL. But yeah, no, that's something that's missed on a lot of people, and I think it's very important to understand that, and it really will give you a different scope.
And when does that happen? Because in high school, we love them. They're all our kids, you know? Oh,
Yeah.
our kids have grown up and they're playing high school ball. In college, everybody's friends with them. You're hanging out with these kids at parties. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's the great football player. He's a college player. And then it goes to the NFL, and it's just like, oh, this, you know, whoever
Yeah.
it may be. It just becomes this whole different thing.
I think it starts. I have to disagree with you because I think it starts way back in that younger era that you're talking about. Is
You do.
Yeah, you're going okay. So yeah, you're in high school, you're hanging out, but you have to keep that persona. You have to keep that demeanor.
Oh,
When
he's
you're
the
in college,
quarterback, yeah.
you're in college, you have fun. You have to be a person. That's how you relate to the boys. That's how you relate to
Yeah.
the next guy in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, be smart about it. Don't you know? We're in a different age too, where people can make things into a lot more than it is. If you're at a party with somebody and you know, maybe he's just acting normal, just like you and I would at any sort of party that we would go to.
But they have a new lens of him.
But now he's instantly on a camera, or she, you know, in women's athletics too, is instantly on a camera, and now that can be easily switched for anything we take. Because I say things, I use words and phrases all the time that my mom wouldn't be proud knowing I say them.
Yeah.
I mean, even on our show,
Yeah. Yeah.
even on the D line. But yeah, it's always having that decorum. It's always having that fine line, and it's also too, you know, I want people to understand this, and we hear it a lot from our generation. And my dad always is quick. My parents are older, and my dad's always quick to remind me of this. My parents are very, you know, forward thinking people. And my dad always reminds me, he says, my generation is the generation that introduced drugs to this world and introduced war. And my dad was raised in his mid-teens to early 20s during Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
my dad's 67, 68. He said everybody tries to blame the kids of this generation. He said, do you know what we did? We used exactly like you guys do now.
Yeah.
You guys, your thing is to use technology. We use drugs.
Yeah.
We did these things. We introduced them to this world.
Right.
So every time he said we're all products of our era, and he said kids are all products of their parents. So it's how you're taught. It's how that generation that's so quick to, for lack of a better term, shit on our generation is, because these professional athletes, you know, it's tough for me sometimes to watch during pre-games and stuff like that. You know, these older athletes that come on and don't understand what these athletes, you know, the way, oh, I don't understand. This didn't happen during the Joe Montana era. You know, like
It did. You just weren't getting exposed to it every 10 seconds on your news
exactly.
feed.
It didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
It did. These guys were taking greenies, were snorting coke, were smoking cigarettes in the locker room. Like, this is what was going on. It just wasn't brought to the forefront.
Right.
Can you imagine? There's pictures of Joe Theismann smoking cigarettes
Yeah.
in the locker room
Yeah.
in Washington, in the Redskins locker room.
Yep.
Could you imagine if Tom Brady was smoking a cigarette in the locker room now?
my
What would
God,
happen
yeah.
to him?
Now, good example, MLB. You see guys chewing tobacco now. They
Yeah.
lose their shit. It's like, oh, they're setting a bad... Literally, I heard the broadcaster saying they're setting a bad example for the kids. Like,
It's just
that's like hand in hand. They used to
Yeah.
go together, chewing tobacco and MLB. You know?
Yeah, it's and that's the thing too. A lot of the guys, you in Major League Baseball, you are exposed yourself to being fined if you were taking an interview with the dip in.
Wow.
Yeah, you are exposing yourself fine. But that's the thing. We're not like now we're noticing that because back in the day, you know how Joe Theismann probably could suck on a cigarette while he was giving his interview because it was
Yeah.
on the radio.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's a different era, and it's very frustrating to see the way that people deal with the professional athlete of this era, based on the way they dealt with one of a favorite of my team, probably the greatest player ever to play for my New York Jets, Joe Namath. Broadway Joe was no saint, and Broadway Joe is still no saint. Okay, the shit that guy's done. You can
write a
pull
book
up
on it.
pull up the Susie Colbert the YouTube clip, and that's all you need to see.
Yeah.
You know, like that's an older time generation player, but that guy will be the first guy that'll come out and rip on some of these players. You know, that it pisses me off about Namath all the time.
Yeah.
Because he always comes out and gives his opinion on certain Jets players when things have gone bad with them, or or maybe they're not playing well. And he's always quick to go on the fucking radio. Oh, sorry, pardon me.
You can go swear here.
Okay. He's always quick to go on the radio in New York and shit all over current Jets players for things that they do and ways that they act, in the things that they say in the media or the things they do that the media has caught them doing. But man, he was no saint
right,
himself.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And that's the hypocrisy that we live in. I think it is
absolutely.
It's not just something in sports. I think it's a hypocrisy our generation lives with day to day too, because it's like, all you hear in this day and age is, the problem with this generation is these kids nowadays, they have no respect and all they care about is their Well, you know what? The person who's saying that is someone who raised a kid in this generation.
Yep. And I had a psych professor that once told me, for every finger you're pointing at somebody, you have 4 more pointing back at you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, exactly. Like, I don't know. People don't want to claim their shit. So
yeah, it's something to think about in sports. And it's Zach. I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole because we beat it to death on the D line.
Yeah.
But it's something that I implore people to think about with Antonio Brown. What happened with this guy doesn't happen overnight,
right?
And he was always kind of a model figure for his first many years, in Pittsburgh. But something happens, and some pressure hit him, I believe, with the media, and I think something went array that is reason he is the way he is now.
Right. I think his life started to crack a little bit, and then that just facilitated it and put fuel on the fire. I agree.
And we're not, and people aren't helping people with that either.
Right.
So
just kind of looking at, again, like this kind of dual growth that you got going on. You're doing the scouting, and then you're getting a little bit of on-air work with the D-line.
Yeah.
Do you hope that these kind of cross paths? Maybe like a scouting radio podcast?
I don't foresee that, because there are kind of like slippery slopes to go down with that, job-wise. But at the same time, I kind of like where I'm at with the football. It also is a nice release to go and talk about football too. Because I don't often get that, and it kind of goes back to that statement I made earlier. It's intelligent conversation. It's not just stupid did you see the game last night? Tom Brady was good.
Yeah, right.
No, we're actually delving into it. It's fun to talk about. So for me, it's a little bit different. I really don't see them crossing paths. I mean, I don't mind doing, I enjoy doing, kind of spot appearances like this. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more involved in talking about it or anything like that. But, I think they're kind of two separate entities.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of okay keeping them that way because my life does with my other jobs and stuff pull me in kind of 30 different directions.
Right.
As as I'm sure yours does too. You kind of almost have to keep a day planner for yourself.
That's it. And it's kind of nice to flip the switch once in a while and get a fresh, cleanse the palate.
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. So where do you hope this all ends up in a few years down the line?
I would love to have my own area, scouting wise. But at the same time, I enjoy where I'm at now. I also see myself maybe kind of going down the route of the restaurant business.
Yeah.
I've been in that for a little while now, so I enjoy it. But that's one of the beautiful things about scouting is I think that it's going to offer me still to have that part time.
Right.
And stay in the role that I'm in right now, and I enjoy the role I'm in right now, and
you never know with networking possibilities that come out of that. That's awesome.
Exactly. That's the other thing too. You're meeting so many different guys, and who knows? I mean, you never know. I am very much. I mean, I'm 27. I'm very much so in a spot where I'm not like. I obviously not going to say limiting myself, but I'm still enjoying the good years of my life.
Right.
I have a lot of buddies who have settled down and they're, in the construction industries or in the accounting fields and stuff. And like, it's just like, it's almost like they've sentenced themselves, I've kind of witnessed that. I mean, yeah, they're a little bit more stable, I guess, financially stable, I guess, or whatever. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Like I've enjoyed what I've done for the last 6-7 years since I've been out of college. It's been a cool ride. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, I could very well see myself maybe kind of really settling down and getting a more of a kind of a steady 9-to-5 type deal, or a steady salary type position,
right.
But also keeping scouting. I don't think it's something that I'll give up soon.
That's tremendous, and I'm happy to hear it because
and I'll always and I'll be on the D line as long as they'll have me, or if as long as I'm around here.
Ride it till the wheels fall off,
exactly.
baby.
So
I think a good underlying theme here is for anybody who's trying to get into maybe anything kind of sports related, or if you kind of lost your ability to play, maybe you got injured or something. Like you said, don't be one dimensional.
Yeah. And it's reaching out to the right people. I'll tell you something too. You can't be coy about asking people to give them some help. You can't. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to go down to, I mean, for lack of a better person, Rob Esch with the comments and just saying, "Hey, Mr. Esch, like, if hockey's your passion or something like that, is something you want to get involved in." Teams are constantly looking for people, and I hate to say this word, but people are constantly looking for people to work for free.
Yeah.
And if you're good enough, then free turns into money.
That's it.
So, if it's something you like, then go and do it. There's a girl that growing up and going through college, I worked at Water Safari as I was a supervisor of an area at the water park, and my boss's daughter, she's long been a Comets fan. They've long been season ticket holders, and this year she started working for the team in an internship role. It's her senior year of high school. She's going to college. But she just wanted to be around it a little more, and she went to somebody and they said, yeah, they'll find a role for you as long as you're not getting in the way or in doing something, and anything you can do to just kind of extend that helps out a lot too.
Right.
I mean,
kind of contribute.
Just reach out to somebody. The worst thing that could happen is you send an email and it falls on deaf ears.
That's exactly it.
And then you go down the rung to the next person. Most teams work in very simple email formulas. I mean, that's how I kind of got my start too. I literally figured out different teams' email formats and started emailing people.
So like what they're looking for?
Well, no, some team, it's just as simple as finding out the email address. Some teams don't put their email addresses online, so some teams it could be like joe.smith@comets.com. Or it could be jsmith@comets.com. If you can figure that out,
you can get in the email.
If you can, I'm not kidding. People respond to your emails.
That's awesome.
It's one little tip that I've learned that if you want to get in somewhere, I mean, in so many people have so many connections to other places too. If you're willing to, if you're ready to tomorrow say, hey, I really want to do this, I would be willing to move, then you're in the right industry. Sports are the right industry, because if Mr. Esch can't do something for you at the Comets, then he's got connections. Coach Heenan with UC Hockey, he's another guy too that has built a name for himself in this community. And I'm sure anybody who if you're a hockey person and you wanted to get involved there, then you could go to him. The Utica Blue Sox, if you wanted to get involved with baseball, they're constantly looking for people to volunteer.
The Yard Dogs.
Yeah, the Yard Dogs. I mean, it's
look in your backyard, folks.
Yeah, there's opportunities everywhere. Teams will take it, even if you were to go to a team and say, hey, I'll score for you games. I'll literally do your score sheet. Hey, you know what? Sometimes that snowballs into the next opportunity.
Right.
And sometimes
hey,
from there,
do this for us now. Right.
Yeah. So you never know what something little can turn into something big. So
that's awesome. I think that's a great way to kind of surmise and wrap up here. And if anybody's out there kind of doubting themselves or the path that they're on, or just their overall ability to stick with the thing that they love, whether it be sports, music, art, whatever it is, you just got to stay on it. And I think that's a great way to just kind of tell you, get your foot in the door. And that's the biggest thing. So again, check out the D-Line every Thursday at 6:00 on all Disruption Network social media platforms. And stay tuned again for more Lost Guidance content. Caleb, thank you for coming in again, dude.
Thank you, man.
And I hope you guys do your best to not get too lost out there. And we'll see you at the next Lost Guidance. All right. Have a good one.